Hello, folks. Welcome to My First Business. I'm Naeem Pervez, and this podcast is for entrepreneurs, young or old, who are looking to improve the way that they look after their business. Each episode is designed to be like a conversation with a mentor that you never had, and you'll find inspiration, guiding principles, and possibly some solutions to your current business problems. We talk about the lows, like wanting to shut it all down, and we talk about the highs, like starting your second or your third or your fourth successful business, and also everything in between. My guest today is Saleh Kuba, or Sal as I like to call him. Sal is a serial entrepreneur, and even though he's been in business for a couple of decades, he still has the positive, optimistic energy of a teenager. And I got to learn a lot from Saleh in this episode. We talked about his journey from his first ever client in his first business, which was selling websites to mosques in California in 1997, to today where he owns the largest marketplace for heavy equipment, plantandequipment.com. We talked about a ton of things, his experience with raising funds, the importance of setting business goals. We disagreed slightly on the power or law of attraction. We also talked about how he leverages his network, specifically the EO network, to be unstoppable and get help in facing any challenge or find experts and advice when jumping into new business opportunities. We also talked about Sal's love for the blue ocean, which is doing things that no one else is doing, or businesses that have no competition. Sal has had his hand in a bunch of businesses, so 3D printing businesses, online payments company, construction, a coffee shop, a trading company. Him and his wife were selling desert truffles at some point. He's been running a magazine with his brother. I told you, he's a serial entrepreneur. And my biggest takeaway was how intentional Sal is about building his business crew. In fact, that's why he chooses to be in Dubai, and we'll talk about that. Going from an introverted man with a 1x2 meter office to someone who's financially free, Sal's journey is super inspirational, and I know you'll find a lot of gems in this conversation. So without much further ado, here's Saleh Kuba on the My First Business podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Entrepreneurs Organization. Now, before I tell you what they do, first, let me tell you the numbers behind Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO for short. So they started in 1987. They've currently got 17,000 influential business owners as their members, spread across 213 chapters in 60 plus countries worldwide. They've been in the UAE since 1997 and have 119 members here, with a median member sales of roughly $4 million. And altogether, the total number of people employed by their members is over 23,000. And they've got members from all sorts of industries, including technology, healthcare, oil and gas, real estate, hospitality, jewelry, communications, logistics, travel. I could really go on. Mind blown yet? Now, here's what EO is actually all about. Here's what you get for being a member of EO, or here's what they do for you. EO in UAE provides an effective platform for networking, education, and support for business owners. The entrepreneurial journey can be lonely, and I can attest to that. And with an economy that changes on a dime, it can be hard to know what your next move should be. And that's where EO comes in with their support. One of the key benefits of membership is access to a robust calendar of events, including workshops, social events, and learning opportunities. So you get a ton of networking opportunities, as well as a chance to learn from experts in your own field. EO also offers a mentorship program, so they pair you up with experienced business leaders who can offer guidance and support as you grow your own business. So for me, I've personally or vicariously benefited a lot from being in the EO network through their accelerator program, of which my partner is a part of. And if you're a business owner tired of taking on your challenges all alone and are looking for unique networking opportunities, along with structured support through accountability groups and mentors, well, you can either start a podcast like I did, or if you don't want to do that, I highly encourage you to apply to EO. I'll leave a link for you in the show notes. And if you're not fully convinced yet, I'll be bringing on business owners on this podcast that are currently members of EO, including today's guest, so you can get a sneak peek of what you're getting. Saleh, hey. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on, and thanks for being super on time.
Yeah, that's my thing, man. Punctuality.
You're only half an hour early, but
I was so excited to be on.
Oh, man. Okay. I was thinking of like 100 places to start. We're mostly going to talk business stuff,
Yeah.
right? But let's take you back to 1997. This is 5 years after you're getting bullied. So you're in Orange Hill, California. You're designing websites.
Yeah.
Can you tell me some of those websites? What were you building? Were you building them for yourself? Were you building them for others?
So I was in college at the time. I started college in 96. I graduated high school in 96, started college in 96. And I was in the dorms, and I met this guy named Christian Kratz. And we hit it off. He was very similar to me, but he was also very different to me in terms of his creativity. I'm not a very creative person. I'm more of a talker, doer, salesperson type. And Christian starts telling me about the internet. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? And he starts telling me about it. And I'm like, so what can we do with this? He's like, well, we can design websites. He's like, I design websites. I'm like, why don't we turn this into a business? And he's like, well, why don't you do where you get the accounts and I'll do the designs. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. I was 17, 18 years old at the time. And now that I think about my first client, I was trying to think, okay, who do I know? And the first thing I thought about was the mosque that I go to. I'm like, they need a website.
Yeah.
The mosque needs a website. Like, it's a great way to publicize what they're doing, and it's da'wah, and they can get more people back into the mosque. So I remember I went to the sheikh at the mosque, and I'm like, hey, you guys need a website. I can design the website for you guys. My company, we called it Fat Cat Web. That was the name of the company.
I like that.
And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, people are on the internet now. They're going to look for you. You got to be out there. And he's like, you got to talk to the mosque board. Because in California, the mosques are more of an institution. They're a place of refuge. They're a place where people can go and see other people like themselves.
It's a community center.
It's a community center, exactly. Yeah. Not just a place to pray,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a place where, you might have a matchmaking party. I mean, it's really, like you said, like a community center. So I met the board. They loved it. And we designed our first website. That was it.
Just cold hustling.
Yeah, it was just
an imam.
Yeah, it was exactly. Like,
that was your first sale ever.
That was my first. Well, actually, I mean, I started working when I was 16. I mean, my first job was and you talk about punctuality, and this is where I learned about punctuality, actually.
Yeah.
My first job was at a theater. I was so. Have you worked at a theater before?
Never, no.
So when you first get a job at the theater, the movie theater, the worst thing they can give you is to clean the movie theater at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the worst job. Then you move up, and then you're like the popcorn guy. Then you move up, then you're the concession guy. Then you move up. The best one to have is the guy who gets the tickets and like rips them up. That's like the highest paying one.
You've made it.
You've made it. So anyway, my first day on the job there, when I was 16, I think I arrived also half an hour early. And it was by accident because my mom was going somewhere. She dropped me off, and I couldn't drive at the time. And the manager of the movie theater comes in like half an hour late. So I was waiting for about half an hour, to start my job. And he's like, dude, Sal, you're kind of early. I'm like, yeah, well, he's like, listen, bro, do you want my job? I'm like, no. He's like, you're going to one day have my job if you're so punctual. Like, this is amazing. And I didn't even do anything yet. So I learned that at a very young age that punctuality is so important. And now it's how I live my life. You tell me 9, I'll be there at 8:55. I'm always going to be early. I'm going to be there. You can count on me. And I think follow through and punctuality go together. When I was in college, and I'm kind of going off the rails now. Is that
That's
okay?
fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When I was in college, I senior year, I was student body president of the university. And I dropped my studies and I focused on that. And I ended up failing out that year. And then I couldn't follow through on anything. And it was very difficult, and now following through and being punctual is so important to me. Like, you give me a task, I'm going to finish it. Because I think people go through, in general, all people, they go through some sort of a crisis at some point in their life. They will always go through a crisis, whether it's like a midlife crisis or late age. I went through my crisis really young age, so I'm able now to like go up from there. Does that make sense?
It does. I've had way too many crises. I said, at some point, you mean like throughout life? Like,
yeah. You're gonna go.
But they are defining moments. Like some of my early crises. Like I was a top 5 student for up to grade 10. Grade 11, I switched schools. I failed all my subjects.
Wow.
I went from top 5 to couldn't pass a single subject.
Yeah.
Had that crisis. Went back into 12th grade. In a different school because my 10th grade credentials were so good, they let me into 12th grade. So things were fine again, and I learned whatever I had to learn. Same thing happened in university. First 2 years, strong GPA. Third year, I decided not to give a crap. And it just went downhill. But again, I feel like the only way I learn lesson if life smacks me in the face pretty left, right, and center. 100%. But I want to give viewers a bit more context into the rest of the conversation, and that can be provided with telling them a bit about the journey or what you do now, what businesses you kind of own and run now or operate, and how many of those have happened over the years, whether you've invested or operated, started or shut down, whether big or small. What's your body count on businesses?
Can I count? No, look, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have FOMO when it comes to business. So, like you're talking ad agency and Podsters, I'm thinking, okay, how can I start my own studio? Like that's, I'm not going to steal the idea, but I'm just that's like I'm thinking about it. Like I
don't do it.
don't steal.
And
the
that
idea.
Voice in your head.
Take that voice out. It's the force. No, but that I'm always on, like all the time. Like I'm like, can I do this better? What can I do? But I will always, if let's say that was the case, I would tell you about it. But anyway, body count or count of businesses currently, we invest in businesses as well. So I invest in my friends. If they have a business, so one of them is Zabuni. I don't know if you've heard of Zabuni.
The payments.
Yes,
app, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were actually, my brother and I were early investors in that company. And I believe we actually, I was on the board for a while. I got to see that life. Currently, we have a equipment trading business, heavy equipment and trading business. Mm-hmm. So equipment's kind of, I think, one of my passions. Talking to people is another passion, but I mean, equipment is like what gets me up in the morning. Like,
so it's men and machines.
Men and machines.
Or people and machines.
Yeah. So, I mean, I fell in love with machines 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was actually one of the second or third businesses I started. My dad had a contracting company in Saudi. So he called me up one day and he's like, I need equipment. And I'm like, well, what kind of equipment? He's like, I need a motor grader. I'm like, Dad, I have no idea what a motor grader is. I'm not an engineer, I'm a mathematician, I'm a diplomacy guy. So I went around looking for motor graders. And I remember the first motor grader I saw, I walked around the motor grader and I got to the back and the guy selling the motor grader comes down and he's like, yeah, I know there's no ripper there. I'm like, how can you have no ripper? I'm like, you got to discount the price. I had no idea what a ripper was. Anyway, he discounted the price by $5,000. I told, the purchasing manager, my dad's come like, listen, it's this much. He's like, oh, it's a great price, buy it. We ended up buying that machine. I think from that supplier, we did 100 machines over the next couple of years. But I just fell in love with machines. So equipment trading is what I do now.
And how long have you been doing this now?
So we started the business in 2015.
Okay.
And then while we had that business, my brother joined as well. So he's in the business with me. We found a niche or a problem where there was no platform online to sell our machines. So the way that it worked in our industry is you'd have a yard and then people would, you'd have foot traffic coming to your yard and that's how you sold your machines. And being a guy who loves technology and I love, the internet and the power of the internet, I'm like, why aren't we selling this stuff online?
I mean, you were hustling mosques in 1997, so it does make sense.
It does make sense. So, I my brother's like, let's build a marketplace. I'm I'm like, okay, we really don't know anything about it. It's like, let's just do it. So we started doing the mock-ups, and then I'm a big believer, I don't know if you are, but I'm a big believer in the power of attraction.
Mm-hmm. I'm 50-50 on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
It depends on the phase of life.
Really? What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, there are times where here's a quote that I'm gonna butcher because I don't remember who said it or how they said it, but I remember the essence of it. And it really struck me recently. The essence of the message was that instead of, for example, shouting affirmations at the mirror, instead have undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And by undeniable proof, that comes with actions. So do the things you think you are capable of doing and have enough of them so that instead of the affirmations, you can just look back and say like, I am capable because look who did that. So that's where I'm 50-50. So I'm not 0-100 in the sense that I completely discount 100% of the time that affirmations don't work or mindset or having the law of attraction work for you. But I think finding that balance is what I'm with.
I agree with you. I think you do have to have a balance. It's tough, to believe, because the thing about entrepreneurship, and I'm sure you know this, you're an entrepreneur, is we doubt a lot. We doubt ourselves. We doubt our projects. We doubt our, conviction, especially when cash is tight, when we don't have money to pay for salaries, and we gotta hustle again just to make that extra money just to pay the salaries. So you have that doubt creeps in, and I think at my lowest points, when I went to the power of attraction, or when I had this faith, I call it, it happened. I remember a story. This is a true story. We're raising funds for this marketplace that we built. Now we're the largest. Sorry to went off track, but we're the largest marketplace right now in MENA for construction equipment. We have 100,000 listings. It's called planetequipment.com. I gotta do my plug.
You have to, 100%. The logo is gonna come right here with some confetti going.
So we're raising funds, and I've never done that before, where I was the one going and raising funds. And I think we talked to like 50 VCs. And I went to my wife, and my wife is like my rock. She's my everything, and she's the one that gives me the force. Like she's my secret, weapon. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, babe, I don't think I can do this. Like, it's done. And she's like, you know what? Let's go celebrate this on Friday. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, let's celebrate that you got funded. I'm like, I don't think that's what are you talking about? She's like, no, let's book it. What's the restaurant that you would book if you got funded? I'm like, Pear Chic. I don't know if you know Pear Chic, but it's in the Medina Jumeirah. It's like off on the pier. It's a bit expensive. It's a very nice restaurant. She's like, okay, I'll make the booking. So she called them and she said, hey, I want to book 2 people for Pear Chic. She's like, what? The lady asked, what's the occasion? She's like, we're celebrating a business venture. And she's doing it in front of me. I'm like, okay, fine. So we booked it. And then the next day, we got a call from an investor that wanted to meet. We go do the pitch. And at the end of the call, the investor's like, we want to lead on this. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, we want to lead on this. I'm like, holy crap, this is crazy. And the next day, we went and celebrated it. So that, for me, is power of attraction. What is power of attraction? I mean, it's you have this faith that you've already accomplished your goals. It's kind of like, and I've heard this story. It's not my story. I've read it in books. Yeah. It's kind of like when you buy a car. Right before you buy a car, like I wanted to buy a Wrangler, for example. Right before I bought the Wrangler, I didn't see it anywhere in the street. Like mentally, I didn't see it anywhere.
Now all you see is a Wrangler.
Now when I bought the Wrangler, all I see on the road is Wrangler. The Wrangler was always there, but I just didn't see it. So opportunities, connections, when you put in your head that I want to get funded, let's just say, that was my thing. When you're sitting at Starbucks doing your work, your ear, I am funded. Your ear is in that mindset. So there's maybe people sitting in Starbucks, and you might hear somebody saying in this table next door oh, dude, I'm a VC. I'm looking for projects, but maybe if you didn't have that in your mindset, you wouldn't have heard that comment. It's kind of like the Wrangler.
Oh, you know what? As you were saying that, there have been so many instances in my life that I can now bring up in memory that have echoed that experience. It works really well for Alina, actually, for my wife and business partner. She is a big believer in like, I'm going to put this out to the universe and it's going to happen. And we try to balance it out. So I recently became, especially after joining EOA, a bit more goal oriented. So having quality goals, because that was missing from my life for some reason. I wasn't a great goal setter. The thing is, I'd always accomplish my goals, but I'd never get around the new cycle of goals. So that I'll have periods of life where I'd want something, I'll get it, but then there'll be a phase of when I'm not chasing anything in particular, I'm just kind of humdrumming along as life takes me and going with the flow and feeling in the moment and present and all that, until I come up with a new goal. And then I hit that goal. And then I go into the humdrummy kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is like have constant goals that once one is achieved, what's the next one? Is there a next one? Because that drives, you're right, it does drive your mental attitude in a certain way. It makes, I'll give you a smaller example of your funding was, we made a goal of, let's say, number of discovery calls we need to have every month for us to hit our revenue targets. X number of calls, X percent show up, X percent get a proposal. Out of those, X percent become close clients, and so on and so forth. I can't believe for the last 6 months we operated without that. We used to have it 6 months ago. Then we had a 6-month period where neither me or Alina was tracking that because we got busy in the day-to-day firefighting and the management of the business. And now that we've done that, Sal, I can't tell you, this was 3 weeks ago. And the numbers are already coming in. We're not doing anything extra in terms of lead generation. We're not going out there. Stuff's coming to us. And this is when Alina sits down to me and like says like, see what I said? We put it out to the universe and it's coming. But it's got to be a mix of both, right? I guess this is why goal setting, or in the corporate life, they say goal setting is important. But if you remove the language around that and SMART goals and this and that, it's all coming down to that belief in like
100%. If you don't believe in we also one big investment we did this year was Syntrex. So not this year. I mean 7 years ago.
What's that?
It's a 3D printing business.
Okay.
We're actually the first 3D printing license in Dubai. It's been tough. You know, it's an amazing business. We print medical implants. We print oil and gas parts. We do metal printing.
Let me ask you about your plant and equipment.
Yeah, go there.
When was the first time you realized, you started in 2015, but when was the first time you realized you're onto something good? Was it the moment that you started? Was there a milestone?
On plantequipment.com, because it goes back to the power of attraction thing.
Okay.
So we put out there that we want to build this marketplace. And it was exciting. We were building the mock-ups and this. But there was an ingredient missing where we were starting from scratch. Coincidentally enough, again, it's power of attraction, I swear to God. This woman walks in selling ad space. She comes to our office in Jebel Ali and she's selling ad space in a classifieds magazine. And I'm like, woman, come here. And she's like, what is this? She's like, this is classifieds for construction equipment. I'm like, are you guys online? She's like, no. I'm like, how many years have you been in business? She's like, 15 years. Okay. How many people, if I want to do an email shot, she's like, yeah, we do email shots. I'm like, how many emails you got registered? She's like, 35,000. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, can I speak to the owner? So she gives me the number of the owner. I get the owner's number. I call her up. And she was an older woman from the UK, and she wanted to exit the business. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. And we ended up buying the business and using it to launch plantequipment.com, because there was 35,000 in the contacts, this whole thing. And that's one of the ways we became the largest marketplace, because we had this database. The question that you asked was, when did you realize you had something?
Yeah, you were onto something good with this.
I think when we got the Caterpillar dealer to be a client, and they had been a client 10 years ago in this company we acquired, and now they came back 10 years later. It was huge. Then we got the Caterpillar dealer. We got the Caterpillar in UAE. Then we got the Caterpillar dealer in Saudi. Then we got the Mercedes-Benz dealer, Jafadi. You know Jafadi?
No.
They're the Mercedes-Benz dealer in Saudi Arabia. We got them to be a client. When that started happening and we started getting all these OEMs, I'm like, Zaid, my brother Zaid, who's the CEO. I'm kind of like the guy who brother's the CEO. No, I mean, we
Yes, it's funny. So Alina is the CEO and I'm the chief everything else officer.
No, but I think, I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
But do you feel that you and Lena balance each other? Is that why it works?
It does. Yeah. We have very different skill sets,
Yes.
Combined with respect for each other.
Yes.
So those two common ingredients, I think, make it work, where we can get into groupthink once in a while, but lately we've been forcing each other to take the other side. But the key ingredient there is respect. Do it respectfully and present your case. But yeah.
I've been in business. So I worked in the family business from 2005 to 2015. And my dad was the head of that. So I got to see this scenario where he was the head and he was empowering other people. But I think the stress, it was tough to be there at the top by yourself. In this situation with planetequipment.com, Zaid and I are co-founders. And like you said, we balance each other out. He's micro, I'm macro. He's, into research and finding. I'm more into, talking to people. That's what I like to do. So it's such a balance. And there comes a point in entrepreneurship, and you know this, where I talked about it before, you get that doubt where you're like, dude, this isn't going to work, and there are moments where I'm down and I'm like, Zaid, I just don't feel it right now. Like, I don't know, are we doing this right? And he's like, Saleh, come on, dude, get up. He pumps me up. And there are days where he's down.
Yeah.
And I pump him up. And I think that's the beauty of having co-founders where you're kind of equal in this journey. It's amazing.
Because it's true. You're going to have those shitty days. You're going to have days where you don't want to wake up and go to your own business. There's days where, at least I've had, where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And even though it's temporary, it's very dangerous if both of us are feeling. There have been days where both of us have felt it. And what usually ends up happening is we take the day off, we go to a cafe and we start brainstorming our next business. It's kind of like we're both cheating on our business. We ignore the current baby that's crying. And we're like, if we were to have a new baby, this is what we'd call it. And we do like a jam session for a few hours, only to realize, no, okay, it's now out of our system. Let's go back. Let's go back to building this. Like, it's fine. And we try not to, the longest lull we've gotten into together has been like a week, which is that week felt like a month, because when both of you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, when both of you are, from the macro and the micro perspective, just not in love with your business anymore, not with the industry, not with the customers, not with the solution itself, not with the problem that you're solving, not with the revenue opportunity, not with anything. And we had to go through a reframing cycle. Why are we doing this? And our why has become more obvious and clear. Now we're back and uppity and jumpy about the whole thing again.
You're excited.
Like, one of the whys is this is not the only business we'll do. We will do others, but let's do this one right first and let it finance anything that comes afterwards. And also, let's not give up too early. So I like the trust and praise that you give me when you say, like, when you're saying, what it's like in business. I actually don't maybe as much as you or other people, because I've only done this for 3 years. So I'm still learning. I'm a bit clueless. I try to improve every day, and I know I'm growing year over year, but there are certain things that are so obvious to other people that for Alina and I, we wake up, we're like, why didn't we know this? Why didn't we know this was going to happen? Like, one of the things we talked about, setting goals, right? That should have been like a common thing, like always have like a rolling set of goals so that, you don't have those lull periods in between where you're kind of wasting away the hours, because each of our hour is so highly leveraged, right? As a business owner versus an employee, nothing against employees. I love people that are in corporate careers and they serve their purpose and society needs them. They'll probably add more value than I do in some places. But our time as business owners, that 5 minute, that 15 minute, that 30 minute period, of even if it's just thinking, it's so highly leveraged that if I'm not planning how to use them properly, I'm wasting them. And that's something I'm still kind of figuring out. You were telling me that you're always like...
Two comments.
Say what?
2 comments on what you just said.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was similar in my journey in the beginning, where one thing for me, for example, was negotiation. And I was lucky enough to have a guru who was my dad, who I worked for. And he was, he had all this experience. And I told my dad, I'm like, I'm not good at negotiation. And he's like, listen, it's something that you can learn. You're always going to learn how you just watch people doing it and start practicing. Another one's decision making. When you're an entrepreneur, you got to make a lot of decisions. But one of the first things you learn as an entrepreneur, it's very hard to make decisions, even simple decisions like firing somebody. It's a very hard decision to make. And decision making is also something you can practice. So that was the first comment is, you're right, there's a lot of things you don't know in the beginning. I was like that. But over time, you do learn that skill set, and you can learn it, and you get better at it, whatever it's going to be. Number 2, on the setting goals comment, I think setting goals is important. I'm not saying it's not. And you alluded to, then we got into like this flow, and it was great. But I think the second part of that is, once you've set your goals, what are the measuring tools or measuring KPIs? People like calling KPIs, but parameters that you're going to monitor daily that can help achieve those goals. For example, when we were in construction, for us it was asphalt production and concrete production and aggregate production. So every morning, the first thing I would look at is this report that would show me all the sites and each site how much asphalt they produced. And I could, in 5 seconds, see where the problem is. Call up that site and say, hey, what happened with the asphalt? Why is your site not working? Oh, well, the generator went out. Why is the generator? Well, we didn't have enough diesel. Why don't you have enough diesel? Well, the diesel guy never came. Okay, thanks. Hey, who's in charge of diesel? I am. Okay, why isn't the diesel? Oh, well, we didn't pay the vendor. Dude, fine, but I'm losing money every day because this asphalt isn't being produced. So freaking here's pay the vendor and go get the asphalt, go get the diesel again. Let's get going. So for us today, for example, in plantequipment.com, we look at for inquiries. How many inquiries are we getting daily? That's a KPI we measure. How many clicks are we getting? So we measure everything, and it's very easy for us in a daily report to see everything that's happening and then see where the errors are and then try to fix them.
Yeah, and I think the secret sauce in there is the leading versus lagging indicators too, right? So I've been in sales my entire life, starting from like 40 cold calls a day in my first job. And my manager used to tell me, she's like, I'm not tracking your sales numbers, I'm tracking your activity. How many dials did you make a day? Because everything leads from that. If you ain't making 40 dials a day, none of the other stuff is going to make sense. So
100%.
Make those dials. And I relate that to when I play football right now. Not soccer. When I play football right now, it's not how many goals I scored, it's how many shots did I take.
Yes.
Because that is an indicator. It's like, okay, I took less shots. Why did I take less shots?
Yes.
Did I have low energy? Were the defenders blocking me all the time? Was I on the wrong side of the pitch?
Yes.
And then you start diagnosing based on that. So it's always about the activity that leads to the goal, but not like if you were to track, if I had revenue goals, and I look at revenue numbers every day, it would make no sense. Like, how do you decide on action based on like, oh, revenue is not where it's supposed to be. Great, what do I do with that information? But when you look at, okay, how many campaigns did we launch for ourselves? Okay, and how much time are we spending on this new collateral, etc. There's all these like leading indicators that will give you that end goal. And those are the things. And you're talking about this daily, right? And I need to get into that daily cadence back again.
But it's got to be something, for me, it's got to be something I can look at in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like if it takes me an hour to do, I'm not going to do it.
Of course.
Like it's got to be something I can just look at on the page and like, I got it. I see what the problem is. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You're talking about law of averages. My first job out of college was door-to-door sales. It's kind of like cold calling.
Yeah, pretty same.
And I actually learned so much from that job. It was one of the worst jobs I ever had, but I learned so much from that job. And my line manager, they used to call him whatever. He would say, "Sal, you got to do 100 doors. You got to knock on." We were selling coupons. You got to knock on 100 doors a day. That's all I care about. I'm like, what? So he'd give me like the sheet, and I would put the address, the street address of every house I knocked. He's like, just get to 100 doors, and you'll get 10 sales. And then by the time I got to like 90, I didn't have any sales. And then by 91, it was like, okay, I'll buy a coupon. By 92, I got a coupon. I would go back to the office. I got 10 sales, and then we'd ring this bell.
It's ridiculous how that happens.
It's
right?
unbelievable. It's law of averages, dude. And I tell my team, in plantequipment.com every day, I'm like, guys, get your calls in.
The next one could be it.
I don't care about your sales numbers. All I care about is your calls numbers.
Yeah.
Get me, like you said, the shots. If I can get 10 shots on goal, one's going to hit. Law of averages.
Yeah.
But if I only get 3 shots on goal, that law goes down.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with sales. Like, guys, do your 100 calls a day.
Yeah.
You're going to get those sales.
Yeah. I do remember one of my big whales that I scored was on my like 32nd call at 4:23 p.m.
Yeah.
It's when the energy is the lowest. Yeah. It's when you've been beaten up all day by no's and stress and worry. And then you just have that call and you pretend on the phone, no one hears this, right? Because this is Hollywood, baby. You gotta put on your best show, right? Yeah. You're like, I'm calling you about this and you're gonna love this. Yeah. Let's talk, let's have a meeting. And it went so well. And that just made me a bit more active. Again, I'll bring a bit more active later on in the day. When other people are having a slump, I was going crazy at it. And this has also happened to me in football. So when I play, the last 15 minutes, I reserve most of my energy for that because I know the other guys are going to be tired.
Smart.
And I'm building and I'm watching and I'm purposely tiring them out throughout the game. So the last 15 minutes when I turn it on, you're gonna have to catch me and you're gonna have to like work on catching me.
I love that.
So that's what I like about competition, and how it drives you. But I do want to switch topics though.
All right.
I do take a lot of left turns, so pardon me, but sometimes things don't link up. I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about, financial freedom. And I've been thinking about financial freedom for a while in different kind of terms. My understanding of it has changed over the years. I've changed my mind about it a few times of what it means to me and how close I am to it. And only recently, I've been starting to talk to people about it, which is weird because I used to talk to myself in my head about this a lot. So it's very refreshing now to talk to people. And no matter who I talk to, the answer is always different on what financial freedom means. It means different things to different people. Do you think about financial freedom? If do, would you define it differently? What are your thoughts about it? How close do you think you are to it?
I think I'm financially free. I don't think about going broke. I care more about the solution. And that's one of the lessons I learned from my father as well. I think there was a time in my life, around the time in college where I had failed, and I started a coffee shop. That was one thing I started.
Man of mystery.
Yeah. And it was with a friend. A friend had come to me and say, "Hey, let's start a coffee shop." And so I ended up giving him the money that I had made from other ventures. And he started the and then every couple of months, he's like, I need more money. And I started giving the guy more money. We had no agreement. It was just a gentleman's agreement. And then basically, to make a long story short, the coffee shop was gone. And the guy, had taken the money, and he was a close friend, and it was very complicated, very awkward. But I had basically leveraged other things to get the money, and that leverage had caused, a rupture financially. And so I ran away, and I thought that I can solve my problems in other ways, that were destructive to me. And my father sensed this. I don't know how. I think fathers and mothers have sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and he's like, hey, come, let's talk. And he's like, what's going on with you? I said, well, no, nothing. I'm fine. No, what's going on with you? And I told him, the story. And he's like, he kind of paused and he's like, why didn't you come to me? I'm like, well, I can do this on my own. He's like, no, dude, we're here for you. You have people that are here for you. That was the first thing. Second thing, he said, listen, I'm as greedy as the next guy. That's what my dad says. I'm as greedy as the next guy. But I try so hard to not think about the profit of any deal that we're making in business. I try not to think of that. I block that out as much as I can. I only think about delivering the best product to my customer. That's the only thing I think about. And he's like, Saleh, you do that and the money will come. And that's been my philosophy ever since that moment. And I still there was a lot of credit card debt. That's how I paid for a lot of this stuff. But I remember we made a sheet and I still have the sheet and we wrote down all the credit card debt and I folded it up and I put it in my wallet and it's still like in one of my wallets. I always go back to it whenever I need to. So I make that a point, not to think of the money. Once I start thinking about the money, then I sound off. Where my goal is money, people pick up on that.
Yeah.
And they don't want to deal with people that are just looking to make a quick buck. 15 years ago, I've been married 20 years. 15 years ago, when I was with my wife, I think we were driving somewhere, and I looked at her and I said, and it wasn't a great time financially as well. I said to her, you know what? I'm happy, like right now. Like if I died right now, I'd die happy. And she always tells me this. She's like, I have this thing against people who have a lot of money. Because I think that I'm scared that if I have a lot of money, then I'm not going to enjoy it and things are going to go bad. Blah, 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 blah. So I try not to think about it, but it starts to come on its own. And you start to realize that happiness and money aren't necessarily linked. Money gives you comfort, but it doesn't give you happiness. When I think about the happiest moments in my day or in my life, it's moments when I'm playing like Monopoly with my kids. It's moments when, like, I love off-roading. When I'm off-roading, and I'm doing that, that's a great moment. This moment right now, talking to you and chilling and talking about my life and your life, I'm happy right now. That has nothing to do with money. So I don't really think about financial freedom, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting to get that opinion because I am all of those people and more. And I'll explain. So I had a similar story back in university. I came back home for the summer term and I left my cell phone there. My friend said, leave your cell phone here, leave the plan on. Like, you're not going to be here. I'll just use it for my calls and stuff here and I'll just pay the bill for you. I go back 3 months later. The bill is unpaid.
Oof.
That gentleman left to go back to his country, never came back.
Oof.
I looked at the bill and he'd be dialing international numbers
No way.
on the daily.
Oof.
So I was down. So this is a 19-year-old kid who's down $900. That's a lot of money for a 19-year-old. And I don't come from like a very well-off family, right?
Yeah.
So when I felt that crunch the first time in my life is when I hid from my parents and went and got part-time jobs. Because I was raised in a way like, you don't need to work. We're sending you to study. Just study. If you need money, call me. I'll send you money. We'll find a way. We'll get you the money, whatever you need. So I worked for 2 years on a part-time job, a couple of part-time jobs. Popeye's Chicken. Do you remember Popeye's Chicken?
Of course, yeah.
So
I love Popeyes.
I was back in the back, putting the batter on those little chicks and throwing them in the fryer.
Yeah.
And that changed me a bit when I first understood that, like, yes, I know having money may not make you happy is what I heard, but I know for a fact that having debt is very stressful. having no ways to get back what you lost is pretty stressful. So then I started orienting my life to like, okay, avoid the downfall. So which is I'm thinking a bad way to do it, is to avoid being in that situation ever again. So guard up, always counting, always checking, keep an Excel sheet and everything, and has evolved over the years. Lately, I started thinking financial freedom to me would be, and I'm the same as you, I could die any day and be happy, man, because I tell this to Lena, we got married 8 years ago, and I told her this then. She's like, we just got married, you can't die. I'm like, but if I do, I would not regret, I would not go up to the heavens and be like, no, I need more time. I had a good life for the moment I was there. And with the experiences and the circumstances, I did fine. But recently about financial freedom, I started thinking, as long as I have 5 to 10 years worth of money that I can live in Dubai, for example, and the cost of living in Dubai, I feel like I'm financially free. Whereas other people, friends in the circle, would be like, when I have enough for my next generation, which is their 3 kids, then I'll be, financially free. And I'm like, how far away are you from that? He's like, 4 years. So he's going to be 40 in 4 years. So he's like, my 40 is like, okay, by 40, you want to have enough money for like 2 generations. By 40, I just want to have like 5 or 10 years worth of thing. And then there's another guy that I talked to, completely off the charts. And I was telling him about this runway, like I need a 5-10 year runway. That's my financial freedom. He's like, no, I want an infinity runway because I'll have that 5 to 10 year, but then they'll all be invested in something that's growing by 8 to 10% a year. And I essentially created an infinity loop. Like, so it's never really enough, right? Like
I think if you're thinking about, you look at these people who have billions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars, they're not stopping. They're still going. They want more. They want more. They want more. It's a very interesting question. I don't think about it that much, honestly. Being financially free. For some reason, when I first started Orange Hill, which is our trading company, it comes from a restaurant in Orange County. It's called Orange Hill. My wife named it. Mm-hmm. But my first office in Orange. So when I left Saudi and my dad's business, my dad had basically exited that business, so it was his business, and he went back to California. So I had a decision to make when I left Saudi was, do I come out to Dubai or do I go to California and start from scratch there? And this is where the network thing I told you about. If I was to go to California, I'd have no network. So I looked at Dubai and I had some friends here. I knew some people here. And then when I joined EO, it was like, okay, now I have a network. I have a place I can go to start. Our first office in Jebel Ali was a 1 meter by 2 meter office. It was just me in the office at the time and no windows. It was like a closet, basically. And I'm sure you felt it as well. All entrepreneurs feel it. But that first moment you sit down at the table, whether it's a 1 meter by 2 meter.
You feel like a king.
You feel like a freaking king.
Yeah.
You feel so good. I was like, this is amazing. I love this. I don't know what's about to happen, but this is me. This is me. And now, alhamdulillah, now we have an office in Business Bay. We have an office in Jebel Ali. We have 25 employees here in Dubai. We have 5 in Ukraine. We have in India. We have in Beirut. Alhamdulillah, it's grown. But to look back at that moment where I did, again, you talk about finance, but for me, that was the freedom. Where I am the master of my destiny. For me, that was freedom. I don't really think about financial freedom, even though we had nothing at the time. The moment I got the first sale, we sold the first machine. I can remember it clearly. My in-laws were in town. We went out for coffee. And then I had a guy in the yard and he called me. He's like, hey, we just sold the first machine. And I just started bawling. I'm like, I can't believe this happened. We sold the first machine. It took months because we had bought some machines. And we came in the market in 2015 when there was a recession. I remember in 2015, if you remember, but the market was down. So we bought a lot of cheap machines. And then we sold the first machine, and I was like, this worked. We did it. For us in the equipment industry, a machine could be worth $200,000. So it's a pretty big sale, and you make 20 to 30% on the sale. So for us, it was like a big thing. So, and then I started looking for triggers that gave me that freedom. So for me, selling the machine was always like it's a great big thing. Sitting in my office and journaling was like a thing that gave me happiness. So that for me was the things that gave me freedom. I don't know when I think about freedom. I mean, when you're saying financial freedom, I think you're saying like where you feel like you.
It's about optionality, right? It's how much optionality do you have in your day-to-day or week-to-week life? Like, for example, about 5 years ago, I took my first sabbatical. Not because of health reasons, not because of anything. I wanted to quit my job without having another job. Like, I was still an employee.
How long were you off for?
3 months.
Wow, how was that?
Beautiful.
Really?
Beautiful. I've
never done that.
And I'd planned to do it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm coming up to, like I think in a year or a year and a half, I'm going to do a longer one. I'm going to do like a 6 month or maybe a year sabbatical. And that's what freedom is to me, right? Having that optionality, because I know for a deep down fact, again, as you said, I don't think I will go broke unless there's some big calamity that happens. And, the universe always has its way to like bring people down to ground. But with the amount of skill sets that I've picked up, with the amount, like I won't have to chase money anymore at this stage of life, at least. Those insecurities are gone. That was a 20s thing for me. And, we don't come from money. Like I've had dependents since I got my first job. So for the last 12 years, been supporting the family as well. Mom and dad, their health wasn't too well and dad had to retire and stuff like that. So I took over the reins for that too. That kind of created a bit more insecurity, but everything happens for a reason. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have pulled up my socks as much as I have and made something or tried to make something in my life. I wouldn't say I've made it, but try to make something in my life where I can take care of them and myself and my future self.
It's a driving force. It's a force.
Yeah. And then, not be nervous. Like people are nervous, like, oh, I don't think I want to start a family. I'm not financially there yet. I don't think it takes money to raise a family. I think the money comes, and I think you can do a good job without much too. Having that security now, or that optionality that I can pick whatever life path I want to choose. I want to go and start a podcast. That's the optionality. You asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had that because A, bank balance was low, B, mental balance was low. The optimism of knowing that I wouldn't have to chase money, it'll come to me if I just decide to do something.
Yeah, the money always comes. If you solve a problem, the money will always come. I think I love the sabbatical idea. You're like the third person who's like from in my circle.
That's your sign.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get out.
Peace out, Mike.
See ya. I'm done.
Peace. Check, please. No. So I think for me, so we have this business. We have the plant equipment business. I think I mentioned to you we had a truffle business.
Yeah.
That we got into, which I knew nothing about.
How'd that work out for you?
Look, serial entrepreneurs sometimes fuck up. Okay, listen, I think, it was definitely a blue ocean. Definitely. I mean, nobody had canned truffles, especially desert. I mean, you know what desert truffles are?
I Googled it when you emailed me. I would have never known about it unless you'd mentioned it.
It's huge in the Middle East.
Okay.
So we love to, especially in Iraq, Syria, the Levant, even parts of the GCC are doing it as well. But you basically take these. Does
Marwan know what desert truffles are?
I don't think it's popular in Egypt yet.
Oh God.
So anyway, they're a little harder than regular truffles. You can still taste a little bit of the soil in them because they're deep in the soil. You got to dig to get them out. And you mix them with rice and parsley and meat, and it's a beautiful dish. And my wife and I were looking at it and we're like, let's do this. So we started looking for suppliers. We found a supplier in Africa, and they would can it for us. And we got a license in Jebel Ali. So I added food trading to my license. And we brought, the first batch of truffles.
Just 1 ton.
Yeah, no, we got more. And we're like, this is going to sell for sure, And we started slinging it, around town. My wife actually mostly did it. I was helping. We even took like a table at Ripe Market. Ripe Market? Yeah. We got a table. And we're sitting there with the kids. The kids loved it, by the way. They would like look so forward to like go to Ripe Market and sell like our truffles. And
child labor.
Yeah, child labor. You gotta find ways. And we would go through Ripe Market, and the whole day we'd sell like 1 or 2 cans. And then this woman would come by from like Syria or Lebanon or Iraq, and she would look at the can. She would know exactly what it was, and she's like, "Give me 10 cans." Okay. And then maybe one more would come. So our goal was to sell 20 cans at the Ripe Market. We would sell 20 cans to like 2 people, And I'm like, babe, I think we got to put this in we got to figure out where these people shop. That's where we got to put this stuff. So then we found like these little niche supermarkets that would cater to these people. And we would they would request like 50 cans a week, and we would sell it. It was great. But again, like we were in this really tight niche market. So we did that 2 years ago. We did the year before. And this year we're looking at doing it again. So the thing about truffles is it only grows from, February to April. Mm-hmm. So it's like a 2-month window. So then you can it, and then the price this year was like triple last year because there wasn't a lot of, the harvest wasn't very good. So, and then I'm looking, and I go to one of our suppliers, distributors, and I'm like, we're thinking, we're not sure if we're going to get it this year, blah, blah. He's like, it's good you didn't. I'm like, what's going on? And he shows me the amount of companies that have come into this segment now are like 10 different ones. They're using the same cans we were using, and they're like half our price. I'm like, thank God I didn't buy, So it just taught me that sometimes it's great to have a blue ocean where you're the only player. Like, it feels amazing. Like, you can really set, things your way. But it's a bit too niche, I think, what we were doing. Like, it didn't apply to the masses. So it's very hard to gain a lot of traction. Secondly, you have to have some sort of defensibility. In our product, in the truffles, we didn't have any defensibility. Anybody could come in and then start selling the truffles. Like, we didn't have exclusivity. You can get the truffles from any country in the GCC or Africa. So once you found the supplier, it was really, so we needed defensibility. We shut down that project. We still have like 10 cans left. I'll send you a can sometime. But it was a tough one. But whatever. Sometimes it doesn't work out. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
you invested in the license, you invested in a warehouse, you invest in all this stuff, and then you're like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, I call those neighborhood businesses. It's like your market size is just your neighborhood.
Yeah, but I mean, if it worked, it could have been huge, yeah. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out.
No, I totally agree with you. Like this whole blue ocean thing, it sort of pisses me off because I knew about these concepts. So even reading like Peter Thiel's 0 to 1.
Yeah, it's a good book. And
stuff like that. I'll mention a point from that book in a second. But what we do, for example, our ad agency is a dime it's so undifferentiated because there's such a sea of agencies, especially in this market, because this market has its own. Then it's got all these Indian companies kind of coming in to the space. And now the whole world is open. So everyone in Europe is selling into Dubai. Everyone in North America is selling into Dubai, their services. And it's always been a red ocean. And I'm not saying it's becoming a red ocean. So we've been trying to find our voice. That's part of the reason we got into our lull the last time, the one I told you about. We got into a lull for a week where we didn't know what was the right thing we're doing. Majority of the reason was it's such a red ocean that I sound fake when I try to differentiate it using words or a pitch deck or the technology that we use. And we haven't been able to find our edge apart from the fact that we just work harder than the next guy. And that's cute to say, but it's hard to show, right? And they have to trust you on that. So it doesn't help your sales as much. What helps your sales is more how we present ourselves and, our ability to convey messages. But this is why I kind of pivoted to this podcast. So there's only one of me. If I'm building, let's say, a media business around this guy, there is only one me. There's only one me that talks like me, has my experiences. And if there's opportunity that's come out of it, the moat is already there, because those opportunities only apply to me and how I creatively come up with every episode or every piece of micro content or every piece of written content or anything that kind of supports the ecosystem on that front, which is why I think this is a fun place to be, especially in the media.
I love it. I think
media
it's a great
side
idea.
of things.
I love it.
The other point you mentioned was having a big enough market. That is still being solved for, but eventually I think, media consumption, like whether it's YouTube or podcasts, Spotify, it's picking up over here. It's not where it needs to be, but
Look, I think in my experience when it comes to what you do, so we're a little off topic, but it's okay. Like I have a lot of experience in what you do.
You tell me you're a radio DJ now?
Yeah, no. I'm talking about the ad part. No, I wish I was. I have a good radio voice, don't I? No.
So smooth.
So good. It's 9:00. So in the AdWords ad spend space, I think you're right. It is a red ocean, but when I look at the construction world, for example, when I look at the B2B space, there's still a lot of blue ocean for you. So there isn't a lot of people in the construction world that do what you do. I know because I looked for them. And I tried to push ad agencies. There was one, Wave Makers?
No.
They're a big ad agency. They're huge. And we try to work with them. I'm like, they're big. They got to be good. That was my idea. They knew nothing about construction. They knew nothing about equipment. So it was like basically I was building the ads. I was writing the content, and then I'd give it to them, and they would manage it, and they didn't know how to manage it, and they didn't know. So I think that it's very easy to do the B2C fashion, food, blah blah blah. That part's everybody's doing that. Mm-hmm. But I think there is a blue ocean within that ocean that you can. That's what I think you need to look for. Construction, for example, I can tell you right now, there isn't enough people in construction. Like we're
actually invited to a client of ours. He sells hot tubs and paddle courts, and he has ties to construction businesses. He invited us to come to Saudi last month in February. He's like, you guys should just come. He's like, it's an open space. There's going to be tons of exhibitors. None of them know a thing about marketing. Whatever you give them, they will take it.
So we have a magazine. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, so Planet Equipment.
Like a Michelin star magazine?
No. PlanetEquipment.com is a marketplace. Mm-hmm. But for us, so you did the podcast. What we did is we kept our magazine. Mm. So we converted remember I told you we acquired this classifieds magazine? Mm-hmm. We converted it. It was Zaid's idea. It's brilliant. But he converted it to a editorial magazine. Mm-hmm. So now we're one of the strongest construction magazines, in the region. So that's amazing because we're able to create content that we then push to the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And that's one way we got to close the OEMs. But to go back to what you do, there was this woman that came to us from, I don't know if you know her, Lubna. So she does social media stuff. And she's like, listen, I have this new thing and, I want to do construction and, I want to learn what you guys are doing. And we signed her up in 5 minutes. Like it was we went with her and she's doing a great job. Like she's bringing those ideas from the B2C, the fashion, food, blah, 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 that everybody's used to. She's bringing it to our industry and it's pretty cool. Like it's doing cool things. Yeah. And people are picking like, well, this is kind of like our customers are telling us this is kind of cool. So I think you can find blue oceans within the red ocean. Yeah,
absolutely. We got working with this logistics company, very far away from what we do, right? We're B2C, and it's like you're doing logistics. And we just tried to have fun with it. And it worked. Because like now that you're saying it, it's now coming clear back to my mind about the principles, the underlying principles of gathering attention and asking for a sale are all the same throughout business, whether 100%. It's B2B or B2C.
100%.
It's also, help me understand this. The mindsets of these industries, or the people running these industries, whether they're first generation or second generation, these are typically family businesses too.
Not necessarily, but yeah, let's just say they are for the argument's sake, yeah.
In general, if there are 100 of these companies out there, are they open? How many of them are open-minded enough to explore digital as a way to promote their business and adopt to the new trends? And are they still looking for the classifieds guy to get them listing? Are they still looking for mail orders to be delivered door to door?
That's a good question.
Out of 100, how many are there, and how many do I have to bring there?
Classifieds we still do. So our marketplace is a classifieds model. One thing we're introducing now is we're introducing auctions, P&E auctions. So we're adding a transactional component to planetequipment.com. So we have the classifieds now, and we're getting inquiries. We're adding this transactional component. And one of the resistance points that our investors said, hey, in the GCC and in the Middle East and MENA, people aren't, they're not going to change. That they're set in their ways. It's going to be a hard sell to get them to come and transact for a $50,000 or $200,000 machine online. Like, how are you going to pull that off? And our argument to them was, and it is manyfold, but one thing is, a lot of these family businesses are now bringing in the second and third generations that are more our age. And these people love technology. Okay? So they understand the power of technology. So it's a little bit of an easier sell. That's one. Two, the way the MENA region works is once something gains traction, the masses pick it up. It's unbelievable. For example, YouTube. So I don't know if you know this, but Saudi Arabia is the number one views on YouTube is Saudi Arabia in the world. Not per capita. I'm talking China has or US has 300 million people. Saudi has 30 million people. It has more views than the US. So that tells you how strong there is a technology penetration. It can be adopted. It is a harder sell. But I think once you cross that hurdle and you deliver a product that's amazing, the way that it works in Saudi or UAE or wherever is people start telling other people. You start getting this effect that grows. That's what our markets. There's something about MENA.
It's a village.
It's a village. Even though we have the same population as the US. I mean, if you look at all of MENA, it's probably around the same population as the US. But even with that, I feel so much smaller. So once this thing starts to go viral and people start telling other people, it just grows. So I remember when I was at that company, door-to-door coupon company. So there's another tidbit that I learned from that, and it's so true. And the guy told me, he's like, Sal, always put on a smile. Always put on your best suit. I'm like, why? He's like, listen to me. When you see a bad movie, you tell 10 people. When you see a good movie, you tell one person. So don't be the 10 people, be the one person. So you always he tells one person, it starts growing. And that's what we try to do at planetequipment.com.
Well, it's true. Like let's look at this construction industry, and just one last point on this before we move on to my next most favorite topic. But the fact that I have this resistance, and so do other people, in approaching this, let's say typically old school industry, is also a reason to do it, because that's what creates the blue ocean, because nobody wants to do the bloody hard thing. The hard thing is changing the mindset of an older thinking industry. And usually you're right, we're doing the B2C thing partially because it's easier to understand and easier to do. And the market always rewards you in direct proportion with the problem that you're solving. You're solving small problems, you get small money. Solve big problems, get big money. It's not always true. Some YouTubers make more than doctors do. But in general, the rule is that, if you know how to mop the floor, you're a janitor, and that's the problem you solve. And that's the highest order problem you solve. That's what you get paid. If you solve the bigger problem, which is how do you bring this, I wouldn't say arcane, but arcane industry into the digital mindset? How do you help the second generation transition their families' businesses into a more open online world? And that could be like a ton of education. It could be tons of webinars, in-person events. So you're spending probably a year just educating the market, having a few deals here and there while your momentum is building up. And because you were there so early, by a year or 2 years, you're the guru. You're the guy who's been there you're the dinosaur. By just being there for a year when no one was talking and you're the only one talking. So something to think about.
No, I mean, how big industry numbers? I don't know if you know how big the construction industry is.
I have zero idea. I've never thought about it.
The equipment industry alone, I'm not talking about contracts. I'm talking about just equipment sales.
Yeah.
Is around $35 billion in MENA. 35 billion. Usually, the number in the world is the construction project's value is 10 times the equipment value. So that would give us a value of $350 billion in construction projects in MENA. 350 billion. That's a freaking lot of money, bro.
That's half a trillion.
I mean, you see
almost.
what's happening with NEOM and with the square thing that they're doing now in Saudi. What they're doing Murabba.
Yeah.
So they're starting to, okay, we need to start promoting, what we're doing, but construction is one of the biggest industries in MENA. Yet it's so underserved by ad agencies and advertising and da-da-da. Like it's underserved. And I think that people are starting to pick up on it now that, hey, I would challenge you to go to the Big Five this year. It's happening.
When is that?
I think it's end of the year. So we sponsor that event.
Something sooner.
I know. I'll find out. I'll send you a list of, you can actually see it on our website. All the exhibitions that are
Plug.
But anyway, you can go to our website, looking for exhibitions, go attend an exhibition, and you'll be floored. I was just in Las Vegas last week. That's why I had to go away. But
you canceled on me. I remember.
Know, it was my fault. I had to go on a sudden trip to Las Vegas. So we're the media partner of this exhibition that's happening in Las Vegas. And Naeem, I mean, it was unbelievable, the size of this. It was crazy, right? But when I looked at the tech startup world, there was only I met 4 or 5 people in that space. But this industry's so big. And that's why I think we're happy where we're at, because we're in this really big industry. We're kind of a blue ocean. We're the largest marketplace. We're actually the only marketplace right now online. So that's why I talk about blue ocean. It's a very nice place to be.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what it is?
Yeah.
The blue ocean is easier to swim in, but it's harder to get to that part of the ocean.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the dichotomy, right? Like, I want to do something easy. Cool. Do the blue ocean. Yeah, but I want to get there. It's hard to get there. But once you're there, it's easier to swim. Oof. And that's the thing about the red ocean. It's so easy to get to it.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to swim in it.
Yeah. 100%.
So strange.
Yeah.
Construction. We are going to go for some exhibitions. Alina, you're listening, right? bring in your best suit.
Yeah. No, you got to wear boots and a buckle.
And a cowboy hat.
Yeah. You got to call it Saudi.
And you got to have a southern twang to your...
Iraq.
But you have to come with us because we'll be left alone.
Don't worry. I'm in. I love exhibitions.
Speaking of coming with us, so network.
Yeah.
You've mentioned this to me in passing in our email chat and our chat before we started recording too. The power of the network, especially when it comes to EO for you, right? You were talking about moving to Dubai and making that decision primarily or most primarily based on who do you know. There's something to be said about having a network, and there's a completely different game of how you utilize it. What have you learned for yourself over the years, whether it's through EO, with EO, before EO, about leveraging your network properly? And when I say this from the context of someone who's grown up a bit introverted, never had a lot of friends. I had quality friends, but not a lot of friends, and always shy to ask for help. And also was unwilling to give help too. So it was a bit selfish. But amazing things started happening to me when people just started helping me out from the goodness of their heart. That changed my mind on that whole thing. Like, whether it's getting jobs or, getting through financial problems or something else. It's always something that I'm learning, because it didn't come naturally to me. It doesn't come from my family either. So my mom and my dad, like my mom would hate the fact that I have too many friends. She would actually call out on it. She's like, why do you need friends? Why do you have to always go out? Why can't you stay home like a good boy and like focus on your studies? Like, why this now? Why that now? Why are you on the phone? Why are you texting? So I've not been raised as like, hey man, the world is your community. The whole village is like, the whole world is your village, and these are all our neighbors, and let's go and like mix and mingle as much as we can. So I've been fighting that resistance. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better in my own right. How would you, like, I'm a 6 out of 10. For someone like me, are there any advice for other entrepreneurs too that are not sure how to leverage their network properly? Forget building one, because that's a different topic. Building a network is a different thing. But how do you leverage your network properly?
That's a good question. First of all, I feel like there's a mirror here. I was an introvert. Mm-hmm. And people get shocked. I think even when you tell people, I believe it because I was there.
Yeah, you should see me after this interview. I'm napping. I'm crashing in the car.
My change came. I went to boarding school when I was 13, and the first week I was excited. The second week I would basically look at the books and do no homework, and then I was like you, and my grades went from like A's to like F's. That when I went to boarding school. And then my advisor told me, and I didn't tell anybody about my problems. I didn't ask for help. I didn't tell my parents. Then my advisor said, why don't you go to a football game? Or else you're going to get kicked out of school. Like, you got to change it up. So I remember I went to this football game, and I'm sitting at the football game, and there was this kid, I think his name was Yusuf or something, in the first row, and he kept cheering whenever we scored a touchdown. And everybody would cheer with him. And I kept looking at Yusuf, and I'm like, man, like, why is this guy doing it so easily? Like, how come I can't stand up? And I had no friends at the time. It was my first couple of weeks in school. And I think like third quarter, we scored a touchdown. Everybody gets up. Yusuf gets up. The crowd's going, and they all sit down. And I don't know what got into me. I just stood up. And everybody had sat down. And I'm like, with a W, with a W, the W-E-B-B, with a G. That was the name, or we're the web galls. Mm-hmm. With a G-A-U-L-S. And everybody did the cheer with me. And I sat back down. And that was it. I went back to my dorm. Monday comes around. And we had mailboxes in the student center. So I go every Monday. I go open. I never got anything because my parents lived in Saudi, so I would never get any mail. You
just get coupons.
So I opened the mailbox and there's a letter inside. I'm like, holy crap! There's a letter, and it was like internal address, like so somebody had sent it internally in the school. So then I opened up the letter and it's from the dean of students, and I guess the dean was sitting. His name was Mr. Lawson. He was sitting behind me. During the game, and he witnessed this transition, and he's like, Sal, I saw you stand up, we appreciate it as a school, you should do more of that, it suits you. And from that point on, dude, I didn't change. This kind of alter ego started to form where I was the loudest guy, where I was, I'm known in EO circles now as the guy who always like leads the cheers, and even though it's not me, but I'm able to turn that on when I want to now. That's what drove me to become the student body president. That drove me to open business. It was like such a turning point in my life. So that's on the introvert comment. But on to the network.
No, this mirror thing you talked about is real. I am the loudest guy.
Me too.
Parties
me
because
too.
I don't know if I'm overcompensating for something
for like
else.
being quiet for so long.
Being so quiet for so long before and after the thing that even Alina is like, she's quite surprised. She's like, okay, when you're nervous, you're really loud. I'm like, but it works because they like me.
Exactly.
They like me when I'm louder and more arrogant and
But what
funnier.
happens is, and I'm sure you go through this too, but people then start to have this expectation.
Yeah.
Where Naeem comes into the room or Saleh comes into the room.
Yes.
He's going to be the loud guy. And he's going to be, and then when you come in and you're quiet.
Yeah. It's awkward. It's weird.
It's weird for them and you.
Yeah.
So that's what I told you before. There's something called frame of reference. So in a party situation, there's people who are dancing in the middle, who are like, that's usually you and me. Like we're like break dancing, and I do you break dance?
No, I tried.
I love break dance. I love dancing.
Wasn't very good at it.
I'm so good at it. Anyway, and then there's the people who are usually like in the rafters, looking down at the people dancing. Those are two different frames of reference. So try to intentionally sometimes be the guy in the rafters that's just observing, and you see things in a totally different light. When you're in the middle there, also be noticing the people around you and how they're reacting to you. So that's different frames of reference, basically. That's introvert, extrovert. But anyway, on the point of network, that was the main point you came up. I think having a strong network is one of the most important things for business. And it was such an important factor in my decision to come to Dubai and start my business was network. You said this a few times. You said, we go to our work and we have to put out fires. We go to our work and sometimes, we have to start and add a new product. Or we want to go and venture into construction, and start pitching.
Apparently that's what I'm doing now.
I guess. Send me the contract, bro. I'll sign you up today. I need somebody to manage my AdWords. Now I get to play this podcast.
You've been duped.
I've been duped. Oh, damn. Note to self, don't do this again. Anyway, so when you have a strong network, you're able to, when the situation comes out where you have this fire, if I'm able to go through my Rolodex and say, Vic, I know Vic has solved this problem in the past. Let me call Vic. Let me get his experience. I think sometimes people, when they think of network or EO or an organization like EO, they think they're going to join to get more business. They think of network as a way to get more business. I don't think of network that way.
This is why I don't go to BNIs.
Yeah. I don't. So that's one of the things we have in EO is we have a strict no solicitation rule.
Yeah, that's why we join. We won't be sold to.
Yeah, because you don't want to be sold to.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you have a business and I come to you and say, hey, Naeem, I need you for my, I need to hire you. You're not going to say no. That's not solicitation. That's me coming to you. But I think having a strong network is where you can learn from these people. Because there are moments in your business career where you're going to fake it until you make it. Mm-hmm. Where, there's a story of a guy who does media. So he's a party planner. So he's doing party planning and he loves his job. And then he gets a contract with Walmart. So he's doing the media for the party for Walmart. And then the photographer who's supposed to film the party didn't show up. So the manager of Walmart says, hey, what are we going to do? Like, it's going to start soon. He's like, wait, I do photography. The guy never did photography in his life. He's like, I do photography. He's like, you do? He's like, yeah, I'll get my team out here in 5 minutes, in 40 minutes. So the guy leaves the party, goes around like town looking for photographers, and he finds like 2 or 3, and he brings them down to the show, and they do the photography for the show, and then photography and film become the biggest part of his business.
Is this real?
It's a real true story. This is a true story.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of times where you got to fake it, and then you'll make it. But that's fine, stage 1. But the next part of that is you really got to learn it now. So I leverage and lean on my network to learn things that I don't know about. Whether it's, about photography, I'll go find it. And the advantage of EO is we have the best of the best from so many different industries. So another example, this is a true story. We have a warehouse business in Iraq. And I was looking at ways, on different opportunities we can do there. And so I asked a friend, and he said, hey, why don't you get into injection molding? I'm like, okay, I have no idea okay. And then I went to and I looked at, different lines and machines that we can get. And I'm researching, and I'm convinced that, okay, we did the business plan. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. And then I'm like, let me ask my EO network. So I found somebody in EO that had an injection molding business. Called them up. We met. I'm like, listen, this is my business plan. Like, don't do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, don't do this. I'm like, why? He's like, you're going to get crushed. You're going to spend all this money. And the problem with what you're looking at is it has these problems, X, Y, Z. And he showed me the problems. I didn't see them. And he saved me a shit ton of money, So we never did that business. Mm-hmm. But that's where you can lean. Yeah. Now, the thing about network is you have to give to get. So you cannot expect to always ask for help. You have to also be willing to give help.
What if you don't have enough to give, Lena? And say this selfishly, right? Like, I feel like in a business kind of setting, like if I'm going and looking for people that have 5, 10, 15, 20 more years of experience than I do in business. And I'll tell you a recent example. Yesterday, I was on a call with a wonderful lady, Paula Thomas. She runs a podcast called Let's Talk Loyalty. And it was just a I'll pick your brain kind of conversation, right? 45 minutes. And at the end of it, I was, repeatedly saying, like, tell me how I can help you, because I don't know how. I really don't know. And that's literally the thing. If someone's already there, or maybe I feel like they feel so well put together, they've thought about the whole thing, their business, whether it's a media or something else, how do I find what to give back in that sense? Like you meet someone who started a business a year ago, and you're more likely to help them if they've helped you, but they don't know how to help you because they don't know as much as you already.
No, look, I think that there's always going to be a scenario where you have more expertise in your field than somebody else. There's always going to be that scenario. Like when it comes to, we'll use AdWords as an example. You're an expert in AdWords. Like you know how it works. You know how to set up the tags. You know how to do it. So there's going to be a scenario where somebody's going to ask about AdWords. Now, you can either go into it, I'm going to try to get a sale, or you can go into it like I'm going to give this person everything, and if they decide they want to work with me, that's fine. If they don't, that's also okay. There's been a lot of situations where, and I tell my wife, because my wife just started her business as well. So, I don't know if I'm coaching her, but we're working on things together.
You're rubbing off.
Yeah, rubbing off. And I'm so proud of her, by the way. I mean, she's just.
What is she doing?
She's doing home staging. Do you know what that means?
Yeah. So before a property is sold or rented out, just dressing it up. Yeah.
So she just jumped into it. And
she an interior designer?
No, I mean she's great at what she loves designing homes, but it's just our home.
That's awesome.
It's our home. And then she got her first project. It was like this big villa in Arabian Ranches.
Nice.
And it's called MHY Homes, but it's MHY is Maryam, Haidar, Yasin, which are our kids' homes. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and she just jumped into it.
We're trying to tie it back to like, how do
Network.
someone like I help someone who's helping me? Like, how do you create that reciprocal even though you're not equals?
Yeah,
That would
so
make sense.
I always tell her that somebody will call her or call me for advice or for a favor. You get that all the time. In your network, people will come ask you for a favor. And she'll be like, why are you helping this person? I'm like, well, first of all, I like helping people. Like I'm an open book. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'll tell you whatever I got. I'm confident that way. I think we have that similarity. And in the back of my head, I also do believe that there is a payback at some point where I'm going to need you for something. So why don't I have that street cred where I can just, I put it in, and that's part of the network where that's something you got to give to take. So there's going to be a moment where somebody's going to say, hey, can you connect me to so-and-so? Is that possible? That's part of the network is connections because you have a network of people. So you might know somebody that I want to talk to. So can you connect? Now you owe me a favor or I owe you a favor. Does that make sense?
It does. It's how my mom explains it. Like we have this, I don't know if you do it in your culture, but our moms, both mine and Alina's and other moms that we know in our culture, keep a track of gifts.
Oh, my wife does that
over
too.
decades.
Yeah.
So like
You can like pay it back, I think.
my mother-in-law remembers everything.
I love
right?
that.
Like from the wedding day, she's like, hey, why are you going to this person's wedding? They didn't even give that big of a gift. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
So make sure you don't take something too big. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're keeping track?
Yeah.
Oh, we've never kept a list, but we should start keeping a list of all these favors. But yeah, no, that does make sense because it's not transactional, right? Like this help is not time bound, right? It's just because you gave doesn't mean you get at that immediate second. And just because you got doesn't mean you need to give it back almost immediately. It'll come through the universe in the way that it comes organically through either a request for a connection or it could be, hey, my son is starting out his podcast. Can you give him half an hour worth of tips?
100%.
Be like, sure. Okay.
100%.
I'll bank that for something else. It's like trading cards, right?
Yeah,
Like
but the problem is you got to be careful not to do the favor or do the advice or
expect something.
And expect something. Don't you got to go into it. It's got to be unconditional.
Yeah.
That's how it worked for me. Like anybody asks me for anything at any time, I will try to help.
Yeah.
And I know that I can lean on my network in times where I need help.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Where I will lean into my network and say, listen, I don't know how to do this. Can somebody please help me figure it out?
Yeah.
I think we had a situation a few years back where we were looking to change our CRM. And we were using this legacy system. It was the company that we had acquired. They had this old legacy system. And it's something simple. And I'm like, guys, I asked my network, I'm like, hey, I need somebody to tell me about ERPs. And lo and behold, there was a guy who does ERPs. And he's like, let me explain to you about ERPs and CRMs. And he showed me all the CRMs. And then we chose one that worked. It was fine. So if you have the network, it just makes that life easier. I think another example is when this ownership thing happened in the UAE, where now they're allowing for, foreigners to own indeed in the mainland, 100% of companies. We set up a call through EO and where everybody kind of sat around and we brainstormed it. Like, what is the impact of this? And we got one of the members in our chapter is a lawyer. We brought him in to talk to us about it. That's the power of our community, is that we're able to react quickly to changes in the environment and then try as a whole group, have this kind of response that we can all kind of work through together. Corporate tax now. These are simple things, but we want to be ahead of the curve as a group. We want to use our collective energy to really get ahead of everybody else.
Yeah. No, I think that's the most basic advice, yet the most hard to follow in business. Like if you're of the mindset that you're going to go into business alone and this is your own game and you're self-sufficient, I think just I don't want to say this, but quit. Because I had that feeling when I first started with Alina too. I'm like, we're unto ourselves as an island, we can make magic happen. and life proved us wrong, and the market proved us wrong, and we are nothing. We are nothing without having a network. Like, we're pretty lucky and privileged again. So Alina grew up here in Dubai, and she went to pretty good school, which means the kids ended up doing pretty well for themselves. And, you know, a lot of them have family businesses and stuff like that. So we got to lean on that a lot for our first round of clients in terms of referrals. And it's kind of been nonstop from there. And for me, it has come through, like, even playing football, right? Like, those guys that I meet 3 times a week, and we share laughs, we swear at each other. And
Guys' night out.
You know, exactly. And then we go for dinner after a game. You start wanting to help each other. Mm-hmm. You just want to. You're not even asking for anything in back. You're just like, how can I help you? And we all bring up, like, as good men do, we bring up our feelings about things that are going out.
Just invite me to this group.
You should come out.
I'm a good goalie.
We talk. If you are, you should come. You should come play with us. But yeah, this whole being on an island, we were sold this around COVID, on Twitter especially. So it's following these bunch of guys, and they're like building these like one-man businesses that are making digital products, and they're charging tons of money, and they're making, you know, as a solopreneur, making $1 million a year, which is, you know, with a profit margin of 95%, because they're on the internet on a computer building products. And we're like, the romanticism of that felt really good. Not relying on anyone, no team even, no managing, no investment. It just seemed like the utopia of business, right? And Alina and I both got dragged into that mindset for like a good 9 months, where we tried to launch an academy. So out of our agency was born an academy, where like a lot of our clients couldn't pay the retainer around COVID times because businesses were suffering, doors were shut. Like, listen, if you guys don't want to pay us, do the work, let us teach you so you can do it yourself. Because right now what you have more of is time and less of is money. So use the time that you have to learn. We made like this very intense course over 12 weeks.
I love that.
Teach inside out about running your own ads, whatever type of service business you're in. There were templates and formulas and screenshots, and these recordings are saved. You have a community, you can ask questions within a Facebook group, and that whole thing as well. And we thought, you know, this would be our autopilot thing, like that guy we saw on Twitter. It wasn't. It needed work. Like, all business needs work. Like, it's not gonna.
Yeah, I think
it's not gonna run on its
one
own.
thing that when we started planetequipment.com, there was a guy who I had met, the CEO of YouGotAGift.com. I don't know if you know You Got a Gift.
No,
it's the gifting. You can like do like gift cards. Anyway, it's
not a big gifter.
You're not a big gifter. Remind me to put this up.
No, I'm a good receiver. You can always send.
Look.
No.
I always forget to take gifts, so it's kind of cool when you're driving to somebody's house. You can just kind of open the app and then send them a gift card of like Mall of the Emirates, so they get it like digitally.
You Got a Gift.
YouGotAGift.com.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm plugging it, by the way. Okay.
Make sure you ask for that commission.
Hassan Makia. So Hassan, when I started planetequipment.com, I'm telling him about it. You know, when Zayd and I started it, I'm telling him about it, and he's like, listen, Saleh, tech business is not a slot machine. You know, you're not, sorry, it's like a slot machine. You don't like pull the lever and the money's just going to come out. Like, it's not going to be that easy.
Yeah. It's
going to take time, and it's going to take years until that money like comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes in entrepreneurship, we do have this utopian, you know, thing where like, dude, I'm gonna nail it the first year, and it's gonna like be set, and we're done.
Yeah.
It takes work, man.
Yeah.
But one thing that you alluded to, I'd like to circle back to. Can I do that? Can I do that?
Yeah. Call me out, aren't you? This is the soft put down.
Yeah, do it. Boom. Is being lonely. Like, do you get lonely, or do you feel alone? Do you and Lena feel alone together or separately? Like, when you're there in the business and you've had to make all these decisions and you're stressed out and all this is going on, you know, do you feel alone?
Depending on the day, yes or no. I mean, I think the answer is a bit more nuanced than that. A, we have each other, but that's not always good because we can get into groupthink as well. B, I'm not 100% focused on Alina all the time. When there are times when she's not 100%. So we'll be talking, but as couple business owners have this problem, sometimes we want to have a discussion over lunch when the other person's a bit like bogged down mentally. Whether it's a business partner that you're meeting and you set a time to meet them and they don't live in your house and you go to meet them, you get 100% attention. Sometimes we have to like ask for each other attention. So that's one thing about being lonely. But within the business, because of our jobs and we've split them up, it does feel lonely. It does feel lonely. It feels lonely more than it should. EOA makes it feel less lonely for Alina. I'm not a part of it, so I still have the loneliness. You know what? I'll give you the easy answer. For me, at least I'll answer for me, yes. Yes, it does feel lonely.
And that, my friend, is a huge part of entrepreneurship and starting a business. You feel alone sometimes.
A lot of the times.
A lot of the times. And I think I alluded to it a few times today. And when you're in those moments of loneliness, you do start, self-doubt creeps in,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you get to this low point where like, and like you talked about lulling around and all this stuff. And that's one of the things that EO figured out is, and you just said EOA, you know, she doesn't feel it as much. You don't feel it as much. But that's one of the things that EO figured out is as entrepreneurs, we do go through these moments in our day where it's stressful, where like I feel like the walls are closing in and I'm choking and all entrepreneurs go through that. And what EO allows you to do is to share those experiences. And when you share, you start to see that the 8 people that are in the room have the same feeling. So if we all have the same feeling, what's your natural inclination? You don't feel lonely anymore.
Yeah.
You actually feel
calmer.
Feel good. So now that you know that I feel lonely, you feel better. I'm like, okay, somebody's kind of like me. That's kind of cool. But network, and I also will say family, my wife, my kids, my brother, my sister, my friends, my network of EOers, my network, all that for me is network. All of them now are part of what I'm doing. So I want to, and I think when we're younger, and you said it like I just started my business and people, I think when we're younger, we're very inclined to protect what we have and we don't want to share. We don't want to seem weak. We don't want to, like, we do those things where we kind of shed, you know, the world outside and we just do our own thing.
Yeah.
For me now, like I will share everything with everybody. I want them to know, when I'm struggling. When I'm going through that lull, I'll go straight to my mom, like, dude, I'm crashing, babe. Like and she'll be there for me.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of network. So leveraging network, so many different angles.
Yeah, it's not the biggest thing I've learned is not transactional. It's
yes.
not, and
yes.
what I've also learned is that, and by the way, we do have to wrap up in 10 minutes. So
okay.
There's so much I have left to talk to you about. You're just so interesting. You'll have to come back.
We'll see.
You'll have to come back. We haven't even talked about. I wanted to ask you what your job description is. That would have been a fun
every
one.
Day.
I know. I wanted to talk about tough decisions.
Yes.
I want to talk about team and retaining a good, talented team.
Yeah, that's actually on my list as well.
I want to talk about who you look up to most and why.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about risk taking for a bit.
Yes, there's a lot of risk.
I wanted to see how you improve yourself in a way that you're useful to your own business. But alas, some of that will be for round 2. I do have a rapid fire round.
Okay.
We can call it a close after rapid fire with a few words or comments.
Sure.
Last comments from you, but you ready for this rapid fire?
Do it.
I start with the hardest question.
I know, I'm scared.
Should be. Y'all ain't ready for this.
Okay.
Ice cream or gelato?
Oof. Oh.
Told ya.
Oh my God, that's a tough one. Listen, my favorite ice cream is chocolate chip. But gelato also makes a chocolate chip. It's called something else.
I have a gun to your head. You got to pick one.
Yeah, I'll pick gelato.
All right. Number 2, Exciting flexibility that leads to volatile results, or boring consistency that leads to sure results.
First one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. Number 3, surprise me on this one. Spa day or shopping?
Spa day.
Yeah.
10 times out of 10.
So, okay. If you weren't living in Dubai or LA, where would you be living?
It's a good question. That's a very good question, actually. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, those are my 2 spots, man. Like, those are my spots.
I love the struggle.
Yeah, like that's a tough one, man.
Oh,
like
man.
that, you thought about that one. The moon.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm going all the way.
Yeah, I'm going all the way. I'd probably say like Bali was the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah.
Toronto was another one. But let's say Toronto's in Los Angeles because she has family there. So that's probably in the Los Angeles bucket. So I think you're trying to go for someplace that doesn't have family, doesn't have a...
No. Not necessarily.
I would probably go with Bali. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never been there, but I just feel like that's
You
something I
should
would
go. I went for the first time last year. I wouldn't live there.
You wouldn't?
It's overhyped. Like, if you're anything like me,
Yeah.
which I'm figuring
Yeah.
you might not love it.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Portugal.
We're thinking about Portugal.
Oof. I went there when I was... that's a totally different story. We can get into it when
that's a different story because it relates to this whole network conversation, which we can talk about afterwards too.
Yeah.
Favorite sci-fi book of all time? You can only pick one.
I would say The Foundation. I like
The whole series, or the first
book.
one.
The first book just like killed it for me.
I'm gonna try it again. I tried it a few years ago.
Try finishing it. Red Rising is up there. Red Rising is up there. I actually really enjoyed Red Rising because I really identified with him. It was good.
Okay. The one book you think every business owner should read?
Never Finished by David Goggins.
Never Finish. Okay.
It's kind of a business book, but do you know about David Goggins?
Is he a health?
Yeah, he's a
guy?
health guy. Yeah, he's a Marine, and then he
runs triathlons and stuff like that. Okay.
He's just like, he's savage, man. I mean, the guy is just, and that's something I always want to be, is a savage. Like I just like this, so, and he encapsulates that for me. When I read it, I feel like I want to apply it to everything in my business, in my life, like just be a savage.
Yeah.
So I identified with that book.
I need some of that in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. What business do you secretly want to be doing, but you're not doing yet?
Good question. I have an answer. It would be teaching.
Huh.
Why?
Teaching what?
Why are you surprised?
I love teaching.
Technology.
Huh.
To people who are not technologically inclined. It's hidden
like everyday technology.
Yeah, look, I look at, when I go back to California, for example, I'll hang out with my dad a lot, and he'll be like, hey, can you come teach me how to use Google Docs? And so we'll spend like an hour working on Google Docs, and just to see him go through that and be like, oh, this is so easy, I love this. And then I'm like, wow, this, I like teaching. I like to see the faces, people's faces when they learn something new. And I love technology. Technology just comes naturally to me. I studied computer science when it was a minor that I had in college. And I just see so much power in technology. And I see so many people who are not necessarily always older, even people who are, our age group, that don't really understand how to use, like my wife, for example, she doesn't know how to use like AdWords.
I'm the IT guy of the house.
Yeah, I'm the IT guy of the house as well.
It's one of those things where you just stand over the shoulder and it works, right?
Yeah, we get it right away, Yeah. And I think for some people, like, they're afraid to click.
Yeah.
Because like it's just like, if I click, it's like the end of the world. But it's okay. Yeah. So I think that's something that's been in the back.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Like maybe an online series, maybe go to people's houses. I did tutoring. I used to tutor kids when I was younger. I loved it. So I think teaching is. Why'd you sound surprised? I'm like scared.
Because it just didn't fit with any of the other machine. We made that condition for you, right? It's like people or machines.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, computers are machines.
Yes.
That makes sense. You're very consistent.
I'm consistent.
My last question, but I don't know if this works for you though. My last rapid fire question: when you're building a company, Are you building it to make a big company or a small company?
That's a good question. Look, I think it depends on the business. So there are times when we've started a business, like the truffle business. Like we weren't expecting, millions and millions and millions of dollars each month. We were expecting a residual income off the business of, let's say $50,000, $60,000 a month. But in the planetequipment.com venture, our goal is IPO. So it's to go for the whole thing. I think you do need to have an idea of where you're going with the company because it affects your mentality. Like planetequipment.com, when I'm talking to investors or, potential clients, and I'm talking like, this is it for us. Oh, you're not going to exit? No, I'm going IPO. This is my company. I'm taking an IPO. My brother and I, that's the way we think. We're not thinking of exit. We're not thinking of, we want to take this all the way. So that changes your mentality in the business. It changes your mentality. It does. So I think it is important to kind of have an idea of where you're taking the company when you're starting it.
I love it. I'm starting to see that. If you said this 3 months ago, I wouldn't have any idea of what you were saying.
It's okay to have a company that just has a residual income and that's your ceiling and you're like, that's what I want to do with it. That's fine. There's nothing against that. And I've had businesses that are like that.
Yeah.
But you do need to identify and be real.
Yeah.
That this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
Because I think when I was in this trip to Vegas, we had met, one of the potential investors. And I was telling him, he's like, what are you guys going to do with exit? What are you guys going to do with this? I'm like, well, we have some options for exits. But then he's like, no, you're going IPO. I'm like, I know that. He's like, you told me you're going IPO. I'm like, that's what we're going to do. He's like, then don't tell me about exits. I'm like, you're right. So you have to have that mentality because everybody picks up on it.
Yeah. And your daily decisions and actions are based on that too.
Exactly.
Sal, thanks so much for coming. We had 2 hours passed.
It felt like 5 minutes, eh?
But yeah, I think we'll have to get you back in. There's tons to talk about. There's so many takeaways from me. Alina and I usually watch this afterwards and take notes and be like, so what do you think about that?
He's such a good guy.
Like, how much of that can
Invite
we
him
use?
to dinner.
So, no, I'm really looking forward to that. And for those that are listening, I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be sharing everything about Sal in the show notes. Go buy some plants and equipment.
Yeah, wheel loaders and bulldozers.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, thanks,
Sal.
dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Peace out, friends.